Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around all things COVID. We discuss various aspects of the pandemic as well as the upcoming US elections. We're always looking for suggestions for speakers, themes, suggestions on sponsors, and all that. Please be in touch, Sree@Sree.net. Today, we have another episode of News You Missed. It's episode 198. We've been on the air for 198 days, and we are rejoined by Bob Anthony, veteran tech journalist at New York Bob, and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon, freelance journalist and co-producer of this show. Please tag your friends right now and share this so they can join us live or later. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree. Thank you so much for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto, don't cancel your event without talking to us. Let us help you plan a virtual event. We've done events for 50 people and 100,000 people. We bet your event is somewhere between those two numbers, and we work globally. So we'd love to work with you. We also make these kinds of talk shows for folks. If you haven't been here before, this is the show. 195 episodes. We had 1 million plus viewers, 129 million social impressions, 347 guests, 202 of them women, 65 cities and 17 countries the speakers came from, including from Geneva, the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. We're able to do this because of our partnership with Scroll.in and Scroll Global, and because of our wonderful producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon. You can find our archives on youtube.com/Sreenet. youtube.com/Sreenet. Hit that subscribe button, please. Now, are you ready to talk about news you miss? Because I certainly am. There's so much going on that we miss so much every single day. So let's bring onto our stage Bob and Vandana. They were here for episode 147, and suddenly it's episode 198. That's how fast time flies. Hi, folks.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Great to have you both back. I really can't believe it's been 50 days plus since we met. We were talking about the news, and Vandana was doing our first ever field report from a Times Square, Bob, if you remember that. And I know Vandana certainly remembers that. It was quite memorable for many reasons. And it feels to me like every day there's like some huge news, but there's lots of other things while there's this overarching problem with the pandemic. And then into the mix, what do we throw in? Politics and the US elections coming up. So all of it is very complicated. I know each of you has brought a couple of stories to get us started, but I did want to show you why this is so important, that we are missing the news. Even someone like me who lives on the news and is following it every day, I just heard or just read that the Met Opera has canceled its entire 2021 slate. That tells you that huge decisions are being made and is going under the radar for most people because the world is kind of on fire at the moment, and that's what we're seeing. Bob, how do you interpret this?
It's just what you say. Every time you wake up in the morning, it's something different and something stunning, just like that. I mean, I don't know the exact number of years that the Met has been in business, but it's the first time in like a century plus that they've ever made a decision like that. And right, we have closings and suspensions and just just stunning decisions like that being made, and it blows us away every day.
And that's part of the problem, that we don't pay enough attention to it as a result. Vandana, you're someone who pays close attention to the news. You're a freelance journalist yourself. How are you keeping track of all this?
I am barely keeping track. I feel like I'm constantly to keep up with the news. There's so much happening, and it's so hard to be aware of what's happening. Actually, can we jump right into news that we missed? Because this is something that I think no one has been paying attention to, but it blew my mind this morning. QAnon, the website QAnon, turns out ABC has traced out who runs that website. And this is something that should be making more news, but it just completely slipped under the radar.
So let's remind people, and especially since, as you know, we have this global audience, not everyone's paying attention. So QAnon is a conspiracy theory that the world is run by a satanic cult of pedophiles and Satan worshipers, and many of them are in Congress. That's the basic premise as far as I can tell. And as a result, all of these protests and things are happening that are a result of people thinking that kids are being kidnapped by these satanic cult folks. Those are kind of horrible stories. And we have the president has retweeted QAnon stuff, and there are congressional candidates who are running as QAnon, kind of semi-endorsed by QAnon. And so that means they're saying that they're going to Congress and they're going to be with people that they believe are Satanists running the world. What is that dynamic going to be like? And this just tells you how horrible the world has become in terms of fake information being shared online. I know we should tell everybody that Bob is a veteran tech journalist and has covered and watched conspiracies and hoaxes online for a very long time. In my impression of this, Bob, the difference between the kinds of things we used to cover, do you remember the early internet hoaxes of, like, my friend was found, he woke up in a tub of ice with his kidneys removed, like those scary email forwards, like that's how these things started, to now we're talking about people with political power, people with a great reach are now endorsing these things, and it feels like a whole other order of complication and danger, Bob.
Yeah, in the older days of the early days of the internet and online services, these hoaxes didn't reach that far because not everybody was connected. Everyone's connected today, and a lot of these hoaxes margin on the believable. They're not quite as lunatic as the one you just mentioned, and yeah, they make a lot of hay and they spread around pretty quickly. But Vandana, I had not heard of that. I know it's incredibly hard to trace anything on the internet, given the number of routers that you can bounce through and the amount of, phishing and hiding you can do. But ABC actually traced it.
Yeah, ABC did. And turns out this is a man named Watkins, and I believe he was involved in founding another internet forum called 8chan, which was another message forum, which I'm sure you've heard of. And he has been living in the Philippines on a pig farm, apparently, and has been running this entire thing. So QAnon is a message forum which peddles conspiracy theories, and I believe, and it kind of gained international spotlight when President Trump was asked about QAnon, and he said, well, they seem to like me over there, so if they think I'm solving these problems, that's great. But turns out, so the way the site works is that there's an anonymous user called Q who posts these mind-blowing conspiracy theories that people kind of get sucked into, and either this man named Watkins is Q or knows the identity of Q, because he's the person who's publishing this. And it genuinely feels like this should be bigger news, because because QAnon has been in the headlines for the past couple of weeks at least, but somehow it's just not. ABC did this story yesterday, I think, and yeah, it turns out that he's kind of hiding in plain sight in a pig farm in the Philippines.
That's stunning. It reminds me of an old TV show. I think it was called Dark Angel, Jessica Alba. And but one of the running themes in the show was a message that would be transmitted worldwide and would always have this dark tone. This message cannot be traced, and that's what QAnon reminds me of.
Yeah,
and it's not actually real, right? I mean, the conspiracy is not real, but the ramifications are real, and that's what we're living with.
Yeah, I believe, I think there are 24 candidates, 22 Republicans and 2 independents who've either endorsed or kind of supported a QAnon conspiracy theory. So you have 24 people who are running for office right now who are all QAnon conspiracy theorists.
It's so scary. Let's go to Bob. You picked out this story as something we may have missed.
Yeah, let me cue it up on my screen as well. As you know, I cover tech, and things like this, when they come across, cover the border between tech and journalism, and free speech and citizen journalism, and the obviously Facebook, Twitter, all of the social media platforms that even WeChat and globally speaking have come under pressure because of the way they don't limit speech on their platforms. Facebook, of course, is being vilified for its allowance of hate speech, which they're trying to correct. Same with Twitter. But now the Department of Justice is asking Congress, I'm just reading from the Engadget story, to adopt a new law that would make Facebook, Google, and Twitter liable for the way they moderate comment. In other words, the government would take some control and be able to punish for what the government feels. And that's the big problem here. What the government feels is improper handling of content on their platforms. And so they're trying to tweak this section of federal code that would that basically protects these platforms so that the government would have more of a say in it. And to me as a journalist, to me as a tech guy, to me as a citizen, that's scary. As we've seen in this administration, bad things can be done when nobody's watching.
And also we've learned when people are watching too. But you're right, when they're not watching. One of the things that someone said to me very early in the administration, and about 10 weeks in, said, don't just look at what Trump says, also look at what he's doing, because in some cases it's much worse behind the scenes what is happening. So thank you for that story. Vandana, let's go to you for another story.
It just reminds me of this quote, who's watching the Watchmen? And I think about that a lot because there's really no way to check whether the people who are supposed to be keeping things accountable are able to do that. My next story is something that's actually been happening for a while, but I think should have more global ramifications. The political crisis in Belarus. That's made the headlines recently, but as of today, the EU and the US have both said that they don't recognize the president, Lukashenko, of Belarus as democratically elected, and that's going to create an even bigger problem now. So for the last month, the crisis first made headlines because he sort of took power. There was a lot of electoral fraud, and the woman who was running in opposition, she ended up escaping the country and going into hiding. And then there have been protests, non-stop protests in Minsk for over a month now, and they're being very violently suppressed. And as of today, the EU has declared that they don't recognize him as a legitimate leader, and they're now trying to impose sanctions on that tiny country of 9 million people. So I think that's something that would normally have made news, but simply hasn't been occupying much international attention.
Yeah, that made a lot of news when the right after the election, because the president there, which, like you said, the EU no longer recognizes as of today, alleged that he won the election by a margin of like 80% to 20%.
Yes.
which is just hilarious.
Yes.
That they actually reported that number. Even when you look it up on Wikipedia and other platforms, it'll say this election has been challenged, to say the least. And was the opposing candidate taken to the border or something like that? And
yes,
they attempted to throw her out.
Yeah, they attempted to throw her out. She had to go into hiding. Her campaign was based off of her husband's experience with the government. And he was so she was basically running this in his memory. And now we don't know what's going to happen, whether whether he's just going to stay in power or whether they're just going to announce some sort of new election. We don't know. So it's yeah, quite fascinated by what's happening in that, and it's obviously really there's so much violence happening. Let's see how that whether the EU is going to continue paying attention to the crisis.
But isn't it amusing that the EU took action to basically ignore him, whereas locally, our president hasn't said anything similar? I believe he's glossed over it the last time he was asked about Belarus. So it's
Yeah.
once again
Apparently today they haven't done that. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, that's okay. Once again, America doesn't lead the world in something on account of the current administration. But go ahead. You said it was today.
Yes, I believe the US is also, as of an hour ago, announced that they also do not recognize the current president.
Okay.
We know that our president loves authoritarians and has he admires them and he loves the way that they can stay in power, and all the hallmarks of what happens in a situation, as you heard yesterday, where he said there will not be a transition if I'm not happy with the results. Like, that is so scary. There are others who are saying, oh, it's just bluster, it doesn't mean anything. Ben Sass, the senator, said there will be orderly transition. There has been since 1792, but there is not a single Republican who will stand up to him when the time comes, as we've seen in this Ruth Bader Ginsburg succession. You need at least 3 Republican senators to stand up. You'll need 5 or 6 justices to stand up to oppose him. And I see no way that that's happening. And that's why we have to take these threats seriously. It isn't just idle chatter. We have lots of comments coming in that we like to do this tour to see who all are watching. Norm's watching. Hi, Norm. Thanks for being here. What is some news items you missed, folks? Tell us in the comments. Jonathan, 198 episodes in a row, has been with us. We're so grateful to Jonathan for his amazing support of this show. Rachel Cooper is here, and Rachel and I got to work on a fabulous program last week, the OneShare.world Summit, Interdependent Summit, which everyone can see on the OneShare.world website. Karamat says hello, and our friends at Digimentors are here, including Stefan Kaplan. Pratik is giving us many different emoji. That's great. Sujana says, it's so good of you to do this. Info overload everywhere. And Sujana is part of our one of our great shows that we help produce with her and with Dr. Marina Kurian. So Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Marina Kurian host this show called She's on Call. And this Sunday, we have 2 doctors, an OBGYN and an infectious diseases doctor will be on the show. 11 a.m. Eastern, folks. You don't want to miss it. It's always great. And Vandana is one of the producers of that show as well. So please join us on Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And let's just see some of the other comments that are coming in as well. Manuel sends 3 waves, and Rose is, of course, tweeting. Rose is our fabulous co-producer, and last night we had a worldwide superstar on our show being interviewed by Rose, and that was Erica Jong, the writer, who is just fabulous. In her book, Fear of Flying, shook up the world in 1973, and we're still talking about it. It was really great. Jonathan sort of pointing out that he has seen most of the items we're talking about, so we've got to up our game in terms of, we call this news you missed, so he's taking it personally. So we've got to show him things he has missed, and we know he's a big news hound. So I hope we've got some things that he hasn't seen yet. I do want to, just before we move on, just ask each of you, how are you doing through all of this? It's been 200 days almost of the pandemic lockdown in New York. Bob, how are you? How are you handling this so far? How's your work? Talk to us a little bit.
Well, just like everybody else, I'm learning to deal with the current situation. Yesterday was just one of those blow me away news days where you expect to chill out for a day, but that just doesn't happen. So much went on between the Breonna Taylor grand jury coming back and other things happening around the world. You just learn to deal with that, and as long as you're going to be locked up at home, you try to learn new skills. I'll give you a quick example. I've tried to up my tech. I can't pick up my new microphone or show you my new light, but I'm trying to improve my tech game as long as I'm stuck here. But I'm going to have to go on mute for half a second.
Sure.
And then come right back.
Wow, nice.
But see, that's smooth. It has a mute button. But this is a beer cozy. It was given away by a company named Galaxy, which they make shoes and whatnot. It's only meant to chill your beer or your soda. But with my new Yeti microphone, I found out that this is just through experimenting that it's a good noise and pop filter and windscreen. So instead of using it to keep my soda cold, and I have to go on mute for a second, so I can put it back on, I found it's a perfect windscreen. So I'm learning new skills sitting here.
Yeah, I love that. Let's check in with Vandana.
Oh, what have I been up to? That's hard. I've just been trying to keep up with work. I've done a lot of moving in over the last couple of months, which has been an interesting experience. I spent the month of August staying with my family in Brooklyn, right by Brighton Beach, which was really nice because I could escape to the beach every couple of days when I found the time. But other than that, it's an interesting time. I see so many people going through just struggling to keep up, and I've been spending a lot more time in Zoom classes, which has been interesting because I really didn't understand the kind of difficulty that students face until I was in a class with, actually, I was in Shree's class.
You're helping me teach our Stony Brook Journalism Innovations class. And our students are producing some of the segments that will be coming up in the next few weeks. And you graduated from University of Pennsylvania just before all of this happened. Yes. So you had real life classes. What is your feeling now that you're on the other side and watching that? What are the students missing? I don't know if she might be having trouble with her Wi-Fi.
Yeah, normally I would be polite since she's offline for a second. Normally I'd be polite and not make an Ivy League joke about not going to the real Ivy League school like Columbia. But during
she can't hear you. So you that was, for those who are not paying attention, that was inside baseball Ivy League joke from Mr. Columbia over here, Bob Anthony, taking a swipe at the University of Pennsylvania where Vandana studied. So, okay.
Yeah. But since she's offline, it's safe. But
yeah, it's safe. She'll never hear this, so it's
yes.
It's all good. I think she did hear it, and here she is. So.
I didn't. I actually missed that, but I just wanted to say Murphy's Law. My internet has been fine, but the one day we have to go live, it all comes crashing down. I actually missed that. Unfortunately, do not keep up with Ivy League sports. I should be better with it, but I missed what you said.
He was taking a dig at. He was saying it was a Columbia versus UPenn.
Oh, I see.
So tell us, what's it like to move from Brighton Beach, which is in Brooklyn, in the borough that Bob Anthony lives in, to move to Harlem in Manhattan? It's only been a few weeks, or a couple of weeks. What's been that like?
I moved here on the 1st of September. I mean, it's completely different, a very, very different vibe. I really like living in Harlem, actually. I went into a grocery store the other day, which really reminded me of grocery stores back in India, because I feel like I don't know how to explain it, what was different, but it was just different. And I like that this is such a vibrant neighborhood with so much activity. Sometimes a bit too much late night activity. There's a lot of noise happening, but I enjoy it. I like living in a place that feels alive.
I totally get that. One of the things that I want to ask you, Bob, is that I was on the phone with someone in Canada, and they said, I was just walking on the street, and they said, in New York sounds, you're now hearing them on the phone that she wasn't hearing them before, because we would be in settings like this as opposed to being out on the street. Do you see the streetscape coming back to life, Bob?
A little bit. I've noticed that the restaurants in my neighborhood have not only set up seating, but they've set up rather nice seating with roofs and sometimes plastic sheeting in case of a light rain or things like that. And the last few times I've been out into Manhattan, lower Manhattan mainly, I've seen a little bit more activity. Unfortunately, still a lot of stores closing, including one that was closing the day that I walked by. So still a lot of that, but it did seem busier. And yeah, some of the noises of the city are starting to come back.
And I know you have very high safety standards for yourself. Have you adjusted them at all? Are you still waiting for the vaccine to travel and things like that?
I'm still taking it careful. When I go to, last couple times I've gone into Manhattan, I took the ferry, the NYC ferry, which is relatively lightly used right now. And I'm just lucky enough to be in walking distance of one of the stops. And actually it gets me to Manhattan in less than half an hour. Once I'm on board, actually less than 20 minutes. So it's turned up handy. And yeah, once I'm walking around, I'm wearing a plastic glove. I'm keeping away from people despite the full outdoor seating that I see outside of some restaurants. I'm too old to be taking it light.
Well, you don't look old, but I think you're so correct. That's one of the things we've learned in all these interviews we've done over so many weeks and months, the importance of being careful. So you have not eaten sitting outside yet, is that right, Bob?
No, I haven't gone to a restaurant with a friend to eat outside. I mean, I've eaten outside by myself. I've gotten food from a truck and found a nice quiet bench and a nice good vista to look at. But no, not in groups.
And Vandana, you're in a different demographic. You are going out more, I gather, and you've eaten outside at restaurants, right?
I have. I first ate out at a restaurant last month in August. In Philly, while I was in Philly, I didn't eat out at a restaurant at all. It was all just take home. But I know that last month was the first time I did that. A different demographic, yes, but still nervous about COVID. I'm actually not on health insurance, so I'm even more trying to be even more careful. My student health insurance expired earlier this year, and I have not found the right coverage yet. So that's something I'm trying to be very careful about.
And you have to be super careful just so that people understand. This is one of the things that millions of Americans are worried about, and that's why the system here is just so flawed and so problematic for everyone to understand. Just
the in-between people.
Just want to point out that on Saturday we have a show with the World Health Organization, our 5th episode, and we're going to be with Bente Mikkelsen, who is the director of WHO's Chronic Diseases Department, and she's going to talk about COVID-19 and chronic diseases. Please join us at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And she's the former CEO of a Norwegian health authority that had 70,000 employees and an $8 billion budget. And Bob, you know the medical system in America. This is not even the main Norwegian health authority. This is just one of them. So what does that tell you? Socialized medicine, as people would label this, is about helping people. And they're putting in all that energy and all that money to keep people healthy and to help them, rather than making it all based on who has a job at the moment or you're too poor. And so, that kind of setup is so different in other parts of the world.
I mean, the last couple times I've been up in Canada, and I've been impressed at what I've heard and what I've seen, and the smoothness. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what we have. And if people need the aid, they get the aid. If they need the long-term care, it's a lot easier to get than here. They just have it. They've just done it smarter, and that's another example. The one you just showed.
And one of the things that I always hear is how slow everything is in England with the NHS. And so I talked to one of my friends who's a doctor there, and he said, yes, there is a wait, but if it's emergency, you can always be seen. And you know this, at least, Bob, from when you try to call your regular doctor. Like, I wanted an annual physical. You have to wait 2 months. It's not that you get you're paying private insurance, it's expensive, and you still don't see people the next day. Pediatrics is a lot easier, but if you're an adult, if it's routine, it can be weeks before you see somebody. It's not like people are just sitting around waiting for you to see you the next day.
And it's not as easy for us freelancers with fluid schedules. Things change, schedules change, meetings change, and you change an appointment, and you've set it back for a couple of weeks or worse. So yeah, it's not always simple.
All right. Let's now talk about the another story you brought, Bob, for us to look at. You always have a tech story, at least one physical technology story, and so we're going to look at this. Set this up for us. This is something you were excited to tell us about.
Yeah, I'm going to cue it up here while I have the chance. Samsung always has its Unpacked event to introduce new products. And last month, they had a bigger event to run out the new Galaxy S20 line of phones. That's the Samsung's flagship line. But yesterday, they had a separate half-hour Unpacked event to announce the Galaxy S20 FE, fan edition, as you can see. And that was at 10 a.m. Yesterday, New York time, on a busy news day like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine how many people missed the announcement. And in a nutshell, it's a lower priced Samsung flagship phone. It has less resolution than the most expensive, than the $1,000 S20, but it still has most of the top features, including a fast processor, a 32 megapixel front camera, which is actually better than most of the other more expensive Samsung cell phones, and so it's the trend. People really can't afford the top line flagship phones right now, so all of the big manufacturers are looking to run out mid-priced phones. I can't call them cheap, to try to at least snag the part of the market that's being eroded by people not working.
And that's so important for people to have access. Yeah, go ahead.
I was actually I've been a lifelong Android user and very recently switched to the iPhone. It was the low cost of the new iPhone SE that was the main incentive. But I switched right in time for that system update, which introduces widgets to iOS, and I didn't know that wasn't something that didn't exist beforehand. And so I've spent over the last 1 week, I've been quite excitedly trying to customize the widgets on my phone to do what I wanted to do. But I was a victim of that exact ploy.
Yeah,
I've not used the widgets yet, so I've not upgraded my iPhone or iOS. What do the widgets do, and what is that part? What trend is that part of, Bob, in terms of how people are using their phone?
It's just to get more at your fingertips as you open the phone, as you pull it out of your pocket, just to have more there that you can activate immediately. I mean, if there's
so instead of looking at 50 items or 20 items on the screen, what is the I don't know. So what do you see now?
Well, I mean, you can package apps into a folder. You can take an app, like you said, out of the regular lineup and drop it on the main screen so that you can basically scroll up and down and get what you want quicker. I'm a lifelong red-blooded Android user, haven't touched an iPhone in a while. So Vandana might have a much better idea of what specifically this update is. But yeah, it's all meant for convenience and to basically keep you on the platform by borrowing some things that have been available on Android and pulling it into Apple in a little niftier fashion.
That's, by the way, Bob flexing again about his favorite Android platform and making it clear that they already had some of these features that Apple's very good at borrowing features and making them their own, sometimes better. But isn't it true, Bob, that these things sort of go up and down? Somebody's a little more ahead and all of that. What I'm curious about is, where do you see the kind of phone wars? Android really has won the most number of users around the world. but we'll see when Bob comes back. I think he's having tech troubles. But there's Bob. So Bob, where do you see the tech use of the war between Android and iPhone? Where do you see that today? Obviously, Android has won in terms of popular use around the world, and do you see that accelerating? And iPhone will settle into a kind of minority, but kind of wealthier minority, and just stay there while this continues to grow. Android.
That's a good way to put it. I've always thought that Apple benefited from what you call installed base and happy users. Apple users are generally happy with the platform, and to get them to drag them away from Android is tough. Vandana's a unique example. But you're right. iOS users, Apple users, they're happy with it. They're used to it. It works really well. The updates come quickly. And the good thing about having the Apple platform is that many app publishers go publish their Apple app first, and then they'll develop an Android app. So they tend to get things, half a step faster. The big apps will always be on all platforms, but a lot of times Apple will get the new funky app first.
Mm.
We have Macron Boots talking about how he's talking about a walk on October 2nd to fight for things you care about in a way to lead others to join you. So please follow and support him. Check him out on LinkedIn. He's got a post there. So Macron Boot, please check that out. And Vrogue is talking about tech tips and says mostly Apple ecosystem will grow because of the new silicon chips that Apple will reduce prices. Do you know what he's talking about, Bob or Vandana?
Well, the new Apple chips are rather muscular. They're really good. And for Apple to put out a mid-priced phone with some of that technology in it, that's a really attractive thing. That obviously Vandana was impressed by that. No, go. Am I right, Vandana?
Yeah, this is what I've been hearing. I'm not too big on the tech stuff. I mainly switched because I have a MacBook, so I thought it would create better synchronicities. And I had a friend who said, "You're halfway there. You might as well get an Apple phone, an iPhone." But yeah, it's supposed to have something called an A13 processor that's in the same. It's the same processor that the iPhone 11, that the higher end phone has. So it's quite. That's probably why they've kept the same model, which is why it's so cheap. But it's supposed to perform as well as the high-end iPhones. That being said, though, Sree, I have to say it's missing some of my favorite widgets from Android. I particularly liked having the clock display because I like knowing what time it is at home in India at the same time, because my mental math isn't that good, and Android will allow me to do that. But now I can sort of see what time it is in India. And then
so what you're saying is, like, on the iPhone you only get one clock. So
you only get one clock. Yeah. So now you can have like multiple showing different times. And another widget that I'm waiting for it to get, which is great for Android, WhatsApp, which is another app that I use all the time, has this one widget where you can sort of see all your unread messages in one place, and you don't have to open the chat. So people, so you don't have, like, they won't get your read receipt if that's on, which I really like, because I would like scroll through all the messages that I didn't feel like replying to. Unfortunately, now that's something I have, like with the iPhone, I have to open the text to see what that's saying.
All right, let's go to a couple of other stories, and then we'll wrap up for today. There's a middle of a very busy work day for everybody, so we appreciate everyone joining us. For those of you who are still in the daytime side. So, Bob, one of the things we talked about very early when you came on here, and in fact, the reason we started the News You Missed series was because I missed a news story about the trains right here on my block in the middle of the pandemic at the early shutdown. And so you've brought another train story for us.
Yeah, and I won't dwell on it. And as you know, my father was a transit worker, and so I'm always I try to slip in a transit story where I can. But on Sunday, the A train, the one they wrote the song about, derailed at 14th Street in Manhattan on account of somebody threw debris on the track and derailed it. Thought it was fun, and the person you see on the screen right now is he's being termed a hero, because not only did he attempt to stop the guy from throwing debris on the track, he actually jumped on the track, threw some of the debris off of it, jumped back on the platform, but the idiot threw more stuff on, and the train derailed. And most cities, most other railroads would have taken a week to repair what damage was done. The train not only derailed, it hit some of the support columns which support 8th Avenue above it. This station is right in front of the Google building. There we go. There's a shot of car number 6062. It's an R46, which was made in the 70s, 1975. And what breaks my heart about that particular train model, and like I said, I'm a subway nut, is that that train will not be repaired. It's scheduled for retirement in 5 years anyway, and so that's the last we'll see of it. It'll stay in the train yard and be harvested for parts, and they'll just have to run a couple cars short on account of the damage. But if you look at the links that I sent you, there's actually a video of that same car on YouTube in happier days. Somebody just happened to catch it in 2018, pulling out of the same station, I think. So it's, as a subway nut, it breaks your heart to see a car get damaged.
Just to understand, standing on the platform to throw something onto the tracks that can derail a train would have to be something of huge mass, right? Because the train is slowing down, certainly, and therefore it's harder to derail when it's slower, isn't it? Because what did he throw on the tracks? I just can't picture it.
Well, they said he threw D plates, and that's a big, thick iron plate used for keeping tracks together. And there was some other debris. They said a generator. I don't know what that would look like. But yeah, really big, thick pieces of metal. And you're right. The train would have been slowing down to come into the station. And it takes a lot to knock a train off the tracks and into the support columns, a couple of which were dented to the point where they installed extra support columns around the dented ones to make sure no Google employees upstairs ended up downstairs.
Because in a way, these tunnels are holding up the street, right? Because they're right under the street. That's really scary. And we have lots of viewers from around the world who certainly have been to New York and know about it. I'm just looking at the daily news stories around the edges just to understand. So Corey Johnson has dropped out of the mayoral race. He was a leading candidate for the next mayoralty. The town of Swastika, New York, votes to keep its name. Now, that's an unusual story. If it is populated with Hindus who appreciate the name swastika, that makes sense, and they voted because it's an ancient Sanskrit term. That makes sense. But if it isn't, I need to read the story to understand that. And then look at this horrible story: man found guilty of killing ex-girlfriend, eating her remains. So it just shows you that in the middle of all of this, stories continue and life continues and crime and horrible people continue to be all around us. Just really problematic. But those are stories I had not seen before. And even as we're doing News You Missed, I'm finding News You Missed. So Vandana, let's go to one story from you and then we'll wrap up.
I actually had a quick question for Bob. You said the train is going to retire. What's a train's retirement age typically? Like how long would it?
Actually, this particular model was scheduled for retirement. Well, I'll shorten the story. They were going to retire it within the next 3-5 years anyway. They're being replaced with, I think they call them R211 trains that will not have doors between them. You'll be able to walk from one car through to the back without hitting a door. And so these trains were supposed to stay in service until those came online, which is, we probably won't see them for a few years. But yeah, this train would have run, say, to 2025 without hitting a pole.
Yeah, and just to think that a person in the middle of this caused that, this tells you how horrendous things are. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up early today. We're going to thank our sponsors. and then we're going to say their names. I want everyone to know what happened yesterday with the Breonna Taylor story. If you all saw we've talked about Breonna Taylor so many times. We say her name every day on this show, and the grand jury in Kentucky came back and said that the officers did not break the law, even though they conspired afterwards to cover it up and try to blame her and blame the boyfriend. And just imagine if it was your daughter, sister, wife lying in bed and shot to death in her own bed, how that could not be a crime beyond a single count that was around the point of endangering a building more than endangering and killing a living being is so sad. As a result of it, protests all over the country. In Louisville, two police officers were shot, and that's horrible also. And that kind of violence just plays into the narrative that President Trump is going to use. One of the things that we learned yesterday is that as long as coronavirus is not the lead story, if it's about RBG's successor, if it's about protests, Trump wins that news cycle, because the fact is we're not talking about 200,000 Americans dying. And so many people have now come out and said that if the response of the government had been different, we'd be in a different place. So I'll ask each of you to give me a final thought about the news situation, and then I'll let you folks get back to your day. So Bob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, like you said, we get overwhelmed. It's just another reason for me to wake up with smooth jazz rather than with WINS News Radio 88. I mean, I listen to the news when I can. I try to delve deeper into it. I looked at Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's note to his fellow members. He said basically, if you had something to say about
sorry, we may have lost. Sorry, go ahead, Bob. Just say it again. We seem to be having tech Wi-Fi issues during the day, Vandana, that we don't often see at night. So maybe it's part of us being on the air during the daytime.
Or more people being online. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bob, finish up and then we'll go to Vandana.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about the technical difficulties. No, I was just saying that listening to Mitch McConnell threaten his colleagues out of expressing their own opinions was rather unsettling. And that's something that doesn't make the headlines.
Sadly, it's true. Vandana.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I know we've talked about this before, but more than ever, social media has become the main source of news, because the news media don't seem to be covering the things people should be paying attention to. Even in India right now, what's dominating TV channels and headlines is this drama with Bollywood actors involved in taking drugs, when there's so much else that's happening that people should be focusing on. So I think now more than ever, go online, find the stories that, because it's still happening, just as you said, like all of these things, the world is still turning. We just have to find the stories that need our attention.
100%. I completely agree. We just want to tell everybody what's coming up on these shows. So Friday night, we're going to talk about RBG and the fight to replace her in the Supreme Court. That's Friday night. Saturday morning is our show with the WHO, the head of chronic diseases. Bente Mikkelsen will be here. And then on Sunday night, we are going to meet Michael Schmidt, who is a reporter at the New York Times and best-selling author of Donald Trump versus the United States, Inside the Struggle to Stop a President. And that's coming up on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And with that, I will let both of you go. Thank you very much, Bob, and thank you very much, Vandana. Good luck with your freelance work. And Vandana will be teaching our Stony Brook class in less than an hour, so I'll see you there. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being with us. I will now thank our sponsors, and then we will say their names as we have been doing with every episode here. So we want to thank our friends at Nunbelievable, Divinely Delicious Cookies on a Mission. Shop now. Every handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. 20% off with the code SREE, SREE. A big thank you to The Inventor in You by Charles Cunningham Carroll, a step-by-step guide to your first invention at Inventor Charles and guidetoinvention.com. We also want to thank our sponsors. And now we are going to say their names. We always use this cover from Time magazine that you may have seen. Titus Kaffir's painting on the left, and on the right, a young Larcinia Floyd with George Floyd in an undated photo. She would die 2 years almost to the day that he would be killed on camera in Minneapolis. And they're now buried next to each other in Houston. Now we will say their names off of that Time magazine cover, the names on the cover. These are not all the names. Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott. I should tell you that Walter Scott's story about the being shot in the back as he ran away was a story broken by Michael Schmidt of the New York Times. He'll be our guest on Sunday night right here on this show. Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland, Darius Stewart, Samuel Dubose, Janet Wilson, Kaylin Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Joseph Mann, Terrence Crutcher, Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stefan Clark, Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose, Botham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor. Those are not all the names. Those are not even all the names since the killing of George Floyd. Thank you for being with me as I read those names, and please tag your friends and family so they can watch this episode as soon as we're done. It'll rerun here. I want to thank both Bob Anthony at New York Bob and Vandana Menon for being with us, for bringing us news and information we may have missed. And we will continue on this show every single day to bring you voices and views you may not see other places. And we love having the interaction with you. So please continue to comment and share. You can find our entire archives on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SreeNet. And you can you'll be able to send me ideas on how we can connect. You have my email address as well, and please follow me on Twitter. Another way in which you can connect with us is through this WhatsApp QR code, and you just hold up your phone or your QR code reader and you will get a gentle alert when I am live on the air. It is not another WhatsApp group, so please do check that out and please do join us. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Friday night, 9 p.m. is our next show. Bye-bye, everybody.